All right, everyone. So let me go back to what I was going to talk about, and that is letting the printers sit. And I think that is something that really needs to be talk about. The Canon printer, basically, you need to print once a week on that. Now, you don't have to print on an icing sheet. You can just throw a piece of plain regular paper in it, and you can print on that. And in fact, Stacy Barr has a great test print that that can be obtained, and it is wonderful to be able to print on that once a week. That will keep the print head clean for the most part. I say for the most part, and I'll get back to that. The blue has to be printed every 3 days. You go, oh, every 3 days. I don't know if I can do that. Well, that's when Debbie says that she doesn't recommend selling the blue to everyone, and that's what she means. If you're not going to use it, if you're not going to print on it every 3 days, then she doesn't want to sell it to you. Then the blue is not for you.
And
So
that's, I want to say something real quick. And think about it. You're spending thousands of dollars on a printer. And if you're not going to use it every 3 days, you should not have it. And that's
yes,
why we have the edible paper printers. I do want to point something out too. Um, um, you're in Vegas, very dry, and everybody's climates are different. So she's at an extreme. So I just want to point that out. Depending on where you live, it could be a little different, but it gets better from her. Like everybody, she'll have the hardest time where she lives. So
exactly. So now I'm going to go back. Deb, I swear you gave me another great segue. I'm going back to talk about the Canon printer. Once a week for me, printing is not enough on the Canon printer because I do live in such a dry climate. So what I found I had to do when I was using it all the time is when I was not using it all the time, once I switched to the big blue, I have to take the print head out all the time. So every time I would use it, I would have to take the print head out, clean it under hot water for about 20 minutes to get all of the ink out of it. I don't know if everyone knows how to do that, but if you don't, you have to take the print head out. Let me see if I can.
and I want to stress again, she is in an extreme. Like for average climates, it's like every week to 10 days you need to print, and you don't need to do what she's telling you. But if you're on an extreme, this is what she's telling
Exactly.
you.
Exactly. You may not need to do that, but if your print head is not printing correctly, if you have gone a long time and your print head is clogged, then you take the print head out, run it under very hot water. Deb taught me how to do this, or Deb's people do. Amazing staff she has, and you would take out these rubber. I don't know, Deb. What do you call these? The little rubber pieces here.
Yeah, little rubber pieces. That's what we
Little
call
rubber
them.
pieces.
Yeah,
Anyway,
go ahead. Yeah.
take those out. Run it under as hot water as you can stand for like 20 minutes, and keep rotating it until you don't see any ink come out anymore, and let it dry overnight. And then you can put it back in, and then it'll be good the next time you use it. I would take the cartridges out too, and I would package them up with tape and everything, and then that way it would be fine the next time I would use it. But like Deb says, my my conditions are extreme.
Yeah.
But if you guys have oops, and I didn't get mine clean last time. But anyway, because it came off on my hands. I still didn't get all the ink off. Oh, I see where it's coming off. Anyway,
Now, I do
I have
want
to.
to say, since again, she's been decorating for 50 years. And we've actually, and I don't know that you know this because I'm trying to think of the timing between when we came out with this and when you got your blue, but we came out with the Power Max cleaner, which actually takes a lot of that work that you're doing out of it. And it's pretty darn incredible, this cleaner. So
See, I didn't know about that.
yeah, I'm like, wait, how do you not know? But I'm thinking about the timing of when that came out. So
I'm
that's what it
I'm doing
was.
it the hard way, apparently.
Yeah, yeah. But that Power Max cleaner, if it's able to be cleaned, that Power Max cleaner will get it done. And if it doesn't get then cleaned, then it's never going to get cleaned if the Power Max doesn't do it.
Good, good. All right. So anyway, I wanted to talk about that because it's a very, very important point right at the start. All right. Comparing the two types of printers. Obviously, there's two big things. Number one's the cost. Um, a lot, this is entry level, a lot cheaper than this. Okay, so that's number one, probably one of the biggest things. The second thing, size. This can fit on a shelf. The blue, this is the second smallest size. There's two larger sizes and there's one smaller size blue printer. But as you can see, it's still a pretty big printer and it needs a fairly big sized area. So size is a consideration there. So there's a couple of pros and cons there. Um, I've got some notes here. Um, all right. The Another kind of overall thing is icing sheets to store. Now, obviously, there's no icing sheets with the blue, with the Canon, or with another edible printer. There are icing sheets to store. They do have an expiration. They do have a shelf life. And Deb, you probably, I know you know it better than I do. I try to get as long as I can out of them. I think the longest I've got out of them is about 2 years before they do end up starting to go brittle on the edges. That's just my fault because I don't use them enough anymore to warrant buying them anymore because I've got the blue. But just know that they do have a shelf life. All right. Where the blue printer, it prints directly on cookies, cakes, so you're not using any sort of icing sheet to expire. It does use ink in its tanks, but that's always being flowed through. You are printing every 3 days. So, I mean, I've had my blue for a year and I'm now, I think, on my fourth set of 8 ounce inks. So they have an expiration too, but I'm printing so often it hasn't been a problem. All right. So as far as actually doing the prints, I'm not going to print on the Canon because you probably everyone on here has, I'm going to guess, is more familiar with how that type of printer prints on the icing sheets. What I will say is that When you are printing, you are limited by the size of the icing sheet, and of course by the size of the printer. Now, to a certain extent, you are limited by the size of the bed on the Big Blue, and but you or I have the Big Blue, but the size of the bed of the Blue printer. But for the most part, you can print on a much larger size than like this. This is like I believe a 8.5, 8 by 10, 8 by 11 sheet, and this was the largest I could get on this particular sheet, which still wasn't big enough for the cake that I'm going to demonstrate on.
Oh, you're going to print on a big cake.
Actually, I'm not going to print on a full half sheet,
Okay,
but this was actually still too small. I'm going to actually print on bigger than what this is.
gotcha.
But this at least gives you an idea. You still get a beautiful print on the Canon. I picked this particular painting. Oh, this particular print because it's got a lot of dark colors, real pretty. This was the Zac Brown Band album cover that I actually did for a girl who was hired to do was hired by the Zac Brown Band to do the printing on a cake, and she came to me to print on the cake. So that was kind of fun, and I really love that. And I took a video of the actual cake being printed, and it was a lot of fun. But anyway, so as far as the setting up each printer, when you run the Canon edible printer, I don't know about anybody else, but I would always set it up and then run a test sheet through because I didn't want to waste an icing image just in case my print head was clogged or whatever. I would always run a test sheet through. That was my template. The thing was with that, I couldn't change the colors basically once it was going through. So that's kind of a con with that type of a printer. With the blue, you can change the colors. So if it's coming out a little bit lighter and you need it to be a little bit saturation to be a little bit darker, you can change that on the fly. And you can do that on the template, or what I like to do on the template, and I'll show you because I've already printed the template, is I start out with a really light saturation just to save ink. And then as the template is printing, then when I get about 3/4 of the way, then I start adding saturation to make it more the colors that I'm looking for in the actual the color of what I'm trying to print. And then what I do is I measure the cake and I put, oh, I should have shown you, but I put a black Sharpie line around it so that I know exactly where to place the cake. And so it'll be centered. Now, when the other baker brought the Zac Brown cake over, she brought it on a drum already. And so the drum was sticking out, which I had to take that in consideration. I couldn't see my template, so I had to make I had to put some toothpicks in the corners so I knew where the template was, and I set the drum down so that I knew where the template was, so I could kind of guesstimate where it would start showing up printing on the top of the cake. So that is one thing with the blue that you really can't put it on a drum. You shouldn't put it on a drum, I should say, until after it's printed. Another thing with the blue is you can't fully decorate it. It has to go on here without the borders. Otherwise, when the print head goes across, and you'll see that in a minute when I actually print the cake, it'll wipe out the borders if there's already a top border on. You can have a bottom border. Well, no, you can't actually have a bottom border because the drum shouldn't be on there yet. So you can't have any borders on yet. Where on the Canon, you're just printing the icing sheet. So you don't actually you can just fully decorate the cake, and you can put actually the icing sheet on right before the customer comes over and picks up the cake. So that's another difference between the blue and the Canon. You can fully decorate, have the Canon cake done and ready to go way before your blue cake. Another thing as far as the cakes go is the leveling. You absolutely need to have a cake going on the blue as level as possible. Because otherwise, as it's the print head is going over, if it's not as level as possible, you may get some overspray. Whereas on the Canon, it's printing on the icing sheet, so your cake doesn't need to be, it's not as critical for it to be as level as the cake going on the blue. So that's another important point. One thing that I do to get my cakes as level as possible, I don't know if anybody uses an egg bay, but this thing is worth its weight in gold. It makes your cakes really, really level. And I use it all the time on my cakes, and it's wonderful. So that's another tip to get them level. All right. As I kind of went over on the template, when you are printing your icing sheet, when you actually put your icing sheet in the Canon printer or any edible printer, you really can't change the colors on the fly when it's printing. Once you put the icing sheet in, boom, you hit print, it just goes, and that's it. You get what you get when it comes out. The blue printer, once you hit print, it will start, and you'll see it in a minute when I actually demonstrate printing the cake. And you can stand by the computer, and you can adjust the colors. What I do is I keep my phone handy, and I keep what I'm printing up on the phone so I can compare. And if it's not coming out the way I like it, I will mess with the saturation. You know, I'll make it darker. I'll put make the black a little bit more, or I'll put the yellow up a little bit more. Whatever it needs to make it look a little bit more like the picture. So that's something that I really like, a feature I really like. And that is a pro as far as printing with the blue. After you've printed, uh, you can store the cake that has been printed on the blue in the refrigerator. I've not ever had a problem with it. The icing sheets, I haven't had a problem with them. However, I understand that some other people have had some humidity problems. Like if they live in a humid climate, they say don't put icing sheets in the refrigerator once they're on the cake, and so that may be a problem where you live. I don't know if anyone has experienced that, but that's just a word of caution. Um, when you Before you put it on the cake, you need to keep it in the icing sheet in a Ziploc bag or a Mylar bag in order for it not to dry out. And it will tend to curl on the edges if it starts to dry out. And the other thing, and the other tip I will give when you're using an icing image so that the edges won't curl, even on a cake, is to put piping gel on the back and then put it on a rolled out fondant. Just roll your fondant out. It can be fairly thin, and then attach that icing image to the fondant, and then put it on the cake, and you will find that the edges don't curl up. And otherwise, you probably will need a border around that icing image on your cake if you put it on top of your cake without fondant. The other thing about printing on icing images, a pro versus printing on just printing on the directly on the frosting, directly on the icing with the blue, is that the Deb's icing sheets are beautifully consistent. They are a consistent medium. Your Canon, your whatever printer, edible printer you're using, will print consistently on them the same all the time, as long as your print head isn't not clogged. And because the medium is so consistent. With the blue, if your icings are different, if you are printing on American buttercream, or if you're printing on Swiss meringue buttercream, or you're printing on royal icing, or if you're printing on chocolate, and there's different fat contents, your colors may need to be changed. They're different mediums, and the colors may be different when it hits those different uh, mediums. So that's something to be aware of when you're printing on the blue directly on whatever you're printing on.
I do want to interrupt you here for a minute. One nice thing about our training, we have an excellent training program, and we ask you to bring the product that you plan to be printing to the training so that if your buttercream's yellowish, we can help you kind of figure that out before you jump into it with 2 feet. So we kind of teach you, okay, this is, you use buttercream, you use royal icing, whatever you use. Let's see what it does. Okay, this is what you want to adjust, because obviously whatever the palette that you're printing on, which is the top of the cake or cookie, must be, will change, and that will change the colors behind it or on top of it. Sorry, went the wrong
Yeah,
way.
exactly, exactly. And the training, and I'm glad you brought that up, Deb, because the training on the blue is excellent. If you do decide that you want to go with the blue, you've decided that what that's for you. Uh, you are not you don't get this big printer and you're just out in the cold. The training is amazing. So they go through all of that with you, and it is actual hands-on training. So
Yeah.
thank you
So,
for
yeah. And Jill Gold just said, she said, she's kind of questioning why the white chocolate, for example, isn't as vibrant as a frosting sheet. And the reason being is because the medium that you're printing on is less porous with chocolate than it is on the icing sheet. So the icing sheet will soak up that color and make it nice and vivid, whereas with the white chocolate, it kind of sits on top and then dries on top.
yep.
But that's
Yep.
why bring your stuff to training.
Yes. All right. And then the last thing that I wanted to talk about, pros and cons, before I actually demonstrated the cake, because it does get a little noisy. It's not the quietest printer. Is the appearance, the general appearance of the product, the finished product. And you'll see it when we're done. But I believe that on the blue, it gives a beautiful professional appearance. The printing is directly on the cake. There is no layer. A lot of times, I think with uh, an icing sheet, people tend, especially if it's on fondant, people tend to pull that off, like on a wedding cake. When you have fondant on a wedding cake, people tend to pull that off and just eat the buttercream and the cake underneath. So that's something to consider there. So that would be a pro on the blue side. Um, Also, it sometimes doesn't even require a border because it's directly on the cake. Whereas, as I mentioned before, if you use an icing sheet on the top of like a buttercream cake, the edges will tend, especially without a fondant base, the edges of an icing sheet may tend to lift without uh, piping a border around the edge. If you pipe a border around the edge, it does finish it, looks beautiful, and then it won't tend to curl up. But if but you kind of have to finish it with that if you don't want the edges to curl up.
Yeah.
So that's one thing to consider there.
It's also
So
that's
with
also a reflection of the dryness. Depending on where you live, it will curl or not.
yes, exactly. And that's true. And I probably have that problem all the time just because of where I live.
Yeah.
All right. So with that, let me grab my cake.
Does anybody have any questions they want to share with us? Just ask away. Can you repeat the fondant trick? Oh, she basically rolls a thin piece of fondant out and puts the image on top of it, so that it has a nice, clean, level look to it. That's with the edible paper printers. And you can print edible paper on the blues. People don't think about that sometimes because they're like thinking non-edible paper. So
Oh, exactly. And a lot of times that is what I'll do rather than pull out the Canon. And like I said, I have to clean my print head after each time. So if I'm just going to print one image, I'll do it on the blue. Like I had to print an image one time to take it up to Sacramento, and obviously I couldn't take my big blue up to Sacramento, so or my Canon, and so I just printed the icing image on big blue, put it on a piece of fondant, put it in my luggage, and took it up there. All right, so I put the cake on my template, and the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to try to get as close as I can. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go around making sure that my print head won't hit my cake. Because then I would have a real mess.
So Jill is mentioning that she loves the look of the wrapped frosting sheets on the blue to put on the sides of a cake. She said it's very easy to do, and you can actually just print right on the fondant and wrap the sucker right around there.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Becky says I print edible papers with blue for other cookie and cake artists in my area, so it's additional revenue.
Yeah. A great way to get extra prints out of your blue. Okay, and then another tip that I do, and I think Sharita, I don't know if she's on, but another thing I think she was the one who told me is to pause, to get ready to pause it, because once it starts to print, if it's not exactly where I want, get ready to pause it so that I can change it real fast.
Oh.
Yeah, and I thought that was a great idea. So. All right, so here we go.
Like all the sounds everyone's makes, and it all depends on like what kind of flooring they have in their room, because most people don't have carpeting in the room they're decorating, so it has that echo sound.
Yeah, this is like a wood laminate.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm doing right now is I'm watching the color to see if it's the color that I like, to match what I'm supposed to be printing. And so far, so good. I'm going to lift this up so that people can see. It's really awesome because I learned cake decorating when I was in 4-H. That's why I started so young. And my 4-H leader still follows me, who taught me how to cake decorate.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
She must be so proud of you.
Uh, she shares a lot of the posts that I do, and yeah, it's
Yeah,
pretty
when I
cool.
started the business, I went to a store about an hour away from where I lived, trying to find somebody to put an image on the cake, and they created it for me, but it was hard to find them. So they gave me the idea basically, and they are now a customer of ours. They were at the See Me retreat with us.
Oh
So it's
wow!
So just a reminder for those of you who are watching who have ordered your blue and you're waiting for it to come in, well, it's coming in. So make sure that if you haven't paid off your balance, that you call us and get that done because we can't ship until we have full payment. So that's just a reminder for everyone. We're reaching out to everyone and trying to get all those payments in so we can get those printers shipped right out.
It's so exciting too when you get your blue.
So did your printer have writing on the crate?
Did my what?
The crate on your printer have writing on it?
Did it have writing on it? I don't think so.
It may not. When I'm in the office when they're going out, I always write all over the crates, but I'm not always in the office when they go out. So for that. And this hasn't been all that long, and it's almost done printing. So you would
Yeah.
basically kind of just go do something else if you can pull yourself away from it. You don't have to stand over it. But look at the clarity. Wow, on that.
Isn't that amazing?
See, I still get excited.
Yeah.
Patty's good. Yay, Patty. That means I helped with that printer or did something to it. Because I like writing on the crates.
It does. I get as excited as you do, Deb, because it just, cake decorating for 50 years, it it just amazes me, technology and how far this profession has come
Yeah,
all these years. And the last basically 10 years of being able to do the printing, first, on the icing sheets with the edible printers and everything, it just opens up so much more that you can do, and it's so much more that you can offer your customers.
yeah.
And there is the finished project.
Awesome.
Yeah. So now all you have to do is take that off, put it on a drum, and then I always, I don't know, you probably can't see it, but I always have a cardboard the size of the cake. I always have it sitting on that, and then what I do is I put, hang on.
Hey, you printed straight on buttercream, right? Oh,
Yes,
okay.
yes,
That's what.
that's Swiss meringue buttercream. I put this tape on the drum. It's like double-sided foam tape, and then I'll put that cardboard with the cake on it on the drum that has this double-sided tape on it, and then it stays on there. And I always do that
No, that's
for
a
my
great idea.
cake. Yeah. So anyway, this is ready now to put the borders on, and it needs some borders, obviously. But anyway, I think
Yeah.
that's something that Zach Brown would like, or anybody.
And he did. He did like it.
He did.